Alex, and welcome back to another reading vlog. This reading vlog is going to be, I guess, the initial part of my moving vlog. I don't know exactly what my plans for this vlog are, but I'm reading a couple books and I am doing things in the background. So I thought I would start a vlog, and if this sees the light of day, then yay. For those of you who don't know, who might be new here or whatever, I am currently packing up because I am moving country and I'm moving to Scotland. So I am in the process of packing up all of my belongings. During this, I am also reading a couple of books. I am currently listening to the audiobook for Vile Lady Villains, which I am buddy reading with my friends Chris and Eleanor, whose channels I will leave linked down below. Doing this via audio, which is not like me, I'm not normally much of an audiobook girly, but I kind of figured that there would be enough circumstances at the moment where I'm going to just be sat there mindlessly packing things or filling out forms for things that would be good audiobook listening. At the point of starting this, I am 13 chapters in. So actually, I don't know what percentage that is, bear with me. I am 15% of the way into the story, so I thought now would be a good time to check in. And I am also reading A Fable for the End of the World by Ava Reid, which I am reading as my year in Ialdia, adventure in Ialdia prompt for May. So let's talk about them. How far into this one am I? Oh god, I don't know that either. I don't think I'm very far in. I'm about 5 chapters into this one. So we'll start with Vile Lady Villains. This one so far, very meandering. There's not an awful lot that has happened, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We've had a load of Shakespeare references. We've had an interesting dynamic where we are talking about the way that Shakespeare pulls from mythology. And that is because this story is following both Lady Macbeth and Clytemnestra. So we have obviously Lady Macbeth from Macbeth, which is loosely based on Scottish history. Barely. There's next to no actual history in there. He just kind of got inspired by it. We are following her as she has had her deal with the witches from the play, and she has fallen asleep, and then she's woken up and she's not in her realm anymore. She doesn't really know where she is. Enter Clytemnestra, who has just murdered Agamemnon. Just as she's about to kill Cassandra, enter Lady Macbeth, who is like, I'm definitely in the wrong place. And now these two women are being thrust through the universe together. Initially, they are at each other's throats and want to kill each other, and now they reluctantly have to work together to get back home and carry out all of these plans that they have to become queen, basically. I'm hoping that it's going to have a feminist take. We do have where they need to confront their demons a little bit and like atone for their sins, but I'm hoping that it doesn't mean that then they're going to have to atone for the behavior of the men around them. I'm very curious to see where this book is going to take us. And again, I'm already a decent chunk. Oh no, it's updated now. I'm 23% of the way in. So I'm nearly a quarter of the way into this story. So I'm really hoping that this will be able to actually path out a story that I'm excited to read, or to have a load of commentary that I am excited to discuss. Either of those would be great for me. Having a really good time. There are 2 audiobook narrators, one for each POV, because we alternate perspectives. So it goes Lady Macbeth and then Clytemnestra. So we have a Scottish narrator for Lady Macbeth, and we have what I'm assuming is someone of Greek heritage for Clytemnestra, because she does the proper pronunciations of the names and the places and stuff, which is also very cool. So I'm very, very excited to continue this one. I read audiobooks incredibly slowly, like painfully slowly. So we'll see how I fare with it. But I am very excited to continue. So that is what I'm working through at the minute. And then the other one, as I said, is Fable for the End of the World. This one is a dystopian romance. We're in this dystopian ultra-capitalist society where basically the government is corporations now. We are governed by corporations with corporate interests who obviously feed on the people who are most vulnerable, as corporations do. And if you get into a load of debt, you can volunteer either yourself or someone else to this trial, which is kind of like the Hunger Games. It's a televised, not quite a competition, but it's a televised event in which one of these angels, who are these genetically engineered people who have been taught to like train and fight and murder, are unleashed to go murder the lamb, the sacrificial lamb, the person that has been put up for the debt. So they have 13 days to kill this person, and it's a televised event. And we are following two perspectives. One who is an angel who is starting to have like a glitch or a fault that tends to come with angels, which is basically because they're genetically engineered to essentially not have a conscience because they need to be able to be okay murdering people. It's known that occasionally that the wipe, as they call it, will mess you up in some way. So she's starting to glitch and she's really concerned about it, and she knows she needs to complete this trial successfully or else she's going to get pulled out of being an angel, which means that she will probably be sold off to be the arm candy of some rich mogul. And then we're also following the girl that has been put forth as the lamb for this tournament, who has been put forth for her mother because her mother is an addict and a narcissist. So she's put her forth for the debts, and she's going to have to try and survive this. Her brother is a hunter, so they're going to kind of like work together to be able to get through this. This book is going to work for two prompts for me. One for the Ialdia prompt, which is a dystopia, and one for the Our Fantasy Bingo prompt, which is game changer. I'm hoping that she breaks some rules because otherwise, what even is the point? So I'm very excited. Vile Lady Villains is also going to work for Our Fantasy Bingo because it is going to work for 2026 release, especially because it's a debut, as far as I'm aware. So I've got two down for Our Fantasy Bingo, one for Year in Aeoldia, and both of them are my current reads. I'm liking Fable for the End of the World at the moment. I'm not enamored, but I am enjoying it. We'll see. At the minute, it's still in the introductory phase. I think, again, I can't be more than 5 chapters in. So we'll see how I fare as I go on. It's Sapphic. I have a mixed relationship with Ava Reid. I really liked Juniper and Thorn. The Wolf and the Woodsman was all right. Like, I had a decent enough time. I enjoyed it well enough. And I didn't like Lady Macbeth, which is hilarious that I'm listening to Vile Lady Villains while I'm also reading an Ava Reid. This one I'm hoping will be more my speed. It's pitched as like Sapphic Hunger Games, but in a capitalistic corporate society. So I'm very excited to continue and see what social commentary gets woven in there, because apparently both environmentalism and anti-capitalism get thrown in there, which are topics that I like discussed. How much they'll be discussed in a romance, I don't know. I'm not expecting much, but again, just the tidbits to kind of make the book worth my while will be enough. So I'm going to, at the minute, go fill out some forms. So I'm going to put my headphones on and I'm going to continue to listen to my audiobook, and then I am hopefully, if my back allows me, because we did a load of packing yesterday and my sciatica gave out, so if my back allows me, I'm going to continue packing up the very last bits from the reading room. If not, then I will just vegetate and hope that my back recovers and take a lot of painkillers. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to go continue listening. And once I have some thoughts of some kind, I'll let you know. Hey vlog, it is the weekend, so I thought I would check in and let you know where I'm at. I have been listening to my audiobook. I did listen to it for a decent chunk yesterday. I needed to fill out some forms and then I just needed to organise some bits. My back was hurting too much, I think, for me to have really been able to do anything like in the way of lugging boxes. I did help Jamie close boxes. I hold them closed while he tapes them, but I didn't actually do any of the lugging boxes around yesterday because I do have sciatica. It's from an old injury. I used to do competitive dance and I slipped a disc twice and then I have had permanent sciatica since. So it's something that it just happens to me. And after like 3 days of dealing with boxes for my books and for winter clothes and things like that, I just couldn't anymore. So yesterday was more just like admin kind of day. I got in communication with my kids' school and I registered them for school, and I also managed to do a bit of extra paperwork stuff for the house, and then also just a load of to-do lists for all of the other admin stuff that I still need to do that are contingent on other things. That's the problem with doing admin, is that you do something and then it's like, okay, and until that gets back to me, I can't do the next thing, which is very frustrating, but it is what it is. I managed to listen to quite a lot of my audiobook. I am now on chapter 20, so that puts me at 35% of the way in. So I think that means I listened to 6 chapters yesterday. I think I was on chapter 14 when I started yesterday. So I think I listened to 6 chapters, which is pretty good going. Again, for someone who doesn't normally listen to audiobooks, and if I do, I listen to a chapter or 2 at most in a day, it showed that I was just kind of sat at my desk and it was like, okay, this is really mind-numbing stuff that I need to be doing. So that was really good. I'm really enjoying it still. It is a very meandery book. Like there's not a huge amount going on. A couple of those chapters, we definitely had Shakespeare step in as a character. Also his disparaging of Marlowe, which was interesting. So for anyone who's not too much of a literary history nerd, obviously you'll know who Shakespeare is. He is depicted really badly in here. It's taking on more of like legends about him than actual facts. We don't actually know what caused Shakespeare's illness that then eventually led to his death. But there was a rumor that began circulating about 40 years after his death that said that he had gone out drinking and then had gotten a fever. So then there was kind of like the rumor that he was an alcoholic. But that is mostly gossip and disparaging comments that have no foundation in contemporary sources, so sources of around the time period, which most historians always give more credence to things that are contemporary than things that are written, in this case, like 40 years later. We have disparaging of Marlowe, where, you know, you have Shakespeare talking about how, you know, Marlowe's not as good as he is and how he doesn't appreciate Marlowe. And I thought that was quite funny because I really like Marlowe's writing as well. Like, obviously, like Shakespeare's the one that's more well known, but I like Marlowe's writing. But also, like, my queer ass is like, you do not get to diss someone that we think was gay. Like, no. Back in those days. So that was quite entertaining for me as well. So yeah, I'm having a good time with that. And then I also have made some progress in Fable for the End of the World. I think I'm 30% of the way into that one as well now. And I'm liking it. I'm really enjoying the commentary, I suppose. I'm enjoying the relationship, especially that we're getting between Inessa, who is the lamb character, and her brother. I'm really enjoying that dynamic. I also just enjoy some of the commentary, I guess, about the dehumanization of people in exchange for money, be it in the case of the angel that is Mel, and the way that she's been dehumanized because of all of these supposed enhancements, and then the dehumanization of Inessa because of her being put up for entertainment. Like, her life is merely for entertainment. And I really enjoy the commentary that is coming from that. We've just had it where these girls have made eyes at each other. So like, they met each other's eyes, they were curious about it. I'm excited to see where this is going to go. I feel like this is quite a slow start as well for a book like this. Not really, because we're already in the gauntlet. We're already running the gauntlet. I guess I just expected the romance to kick in real quick. And like, don't get me wrong, this is someone who's trying to murder another person and they've already made eyes at each other. So it's kind of arguably quick. To be 30% of the way into a quote-unquote romance novel, and so far all they've done is make eyes at each other once, it's actually bothering to do a lot in the way of world building and setup, which I think is really cool. So it really is trying to do that like even split of romance / dystopia, which I think is cool, because I was pitched this as it's a romance in a dystopian setting, and I don't think it is. I think it's a romance dystopia. I don't think that it's romance first, dystopia second. I think that it is a dystopia with romance as a prominent subplot, which is very cool. So I'm very excited to continue, and I am really liking the writing style in here as well. Today's plan is not much. We are celebrating my dad's birthday. It's not actually his birthday, but we're celebrating it today because we always celebrate birthdays on the weekends so the kids can be around. So we're celebrating my dad's birthday today. So we're not doing a huge amount in the way of packing. I might try and organize some of the boxes that are in the reading room, but I might not. I might just have the day off. So much for a sort out my life moving vlog thing. At the minute, it's been like, oh, I sat on my computer and filled out some forms, and I might do fuck all today. At least I'm talking about books, which is what you're actually here for anyway. So we'll see how I fare with what continues with these. So once I've made a bit more progress in either of the books, I'll let you know and hop back in. Alright vlog, I thought I would check in because I have made progress in both of my reads. And while I haven't made much progress in the way of packing, I have made progress in my reads. And this is a reading vlog first and foremost. So first things first, I have gotten to the 54% mark, I think, of my audiobook. And I am really enjoying this. We've had so much commentary going on in here. I had a lengthy conversation last night with Eleanor about it over on my Discord. If you want to see my spoilery thoughts, you can go check out my Discord. I do have the buddy read there. I've had such a magnificent time with it because I've been enjoying being able to chat about it as well. I think that's really enhancing it because, again, this is a very slow book. It's not really got a huge amount of substance to it. So it's not one of those that I think would have necessarily retained my attention if I weren't thinking of things that are discussion worthy. And there are so many. We've had, like I said before, we've had mentions of Shakespeare's other characters. We've had Egyptian mythology come into this. We had Sachet come into this, which was so cool because we were already dealing with the Greek mythology section with Clytemnestra. So that was very exciting. And yeah, it's very thematically rich because it's very female centric. It's very much discussing the role that men have on women's lives, be it the way that characters are impacted by other characters. So in the case of Macbeth, having an impact on Lady Macbeth, or Agamemnon having an impact on Clytemnestra, but also then the fact that these women are written by men. So obviously you have Clytemnestra, who does appear in the Iliad. The story that we're going with is not the Iliad version of Clytemnestra, because Clytemnestra is just a very submissive wifely role. She doesn't really play a particularly important part at all, aside from being Agamemnon's wife and mother to his children. She's not really mentioned more than that in the Homeric epics. So it isn't until we get Euripides a fair few centuries later where he then creates the story of Clytemnestra having been the one that murdered Agamemnon. So that story doesn't come around until quite a bit later. And again, all of this is based on oral histories anyway, but we have these men. You have the one that has her as this submissive wifely figure, and then the man that has her as this evil woman who wants to murder this great man. And then on the flip side of that, of course, we have Lady Macbeth, who throughout history very little is known about her other than that she was Macbeth's wife, and then in the play she is pitched as the evil voice in the king's ear. So we have these contrasting stories of the way that women are represented throughout history and throughout mythology and throughout stories, and the way that it's always men putting them in those positions, be it the men in their narratives or the men telling their narratives. So I'm really enjoying that aspect of this book, really excited to continue. As for Fable for the End of the World, I am now, I think, 57% of the way through. I did want to get to 50% before I checked in again, and then I just kind of kept reading, and now we're at 57%. Now, sadly, I didn't keep reading on the basis that, because I couldn't put it down, I had nothing else to do. It was too dark to check in, so I figured I'd continue. It wasn't one of those where it's like, oh, I can't put this down right now situations, sadly. And most of that comes from the fact that I think this book is trying to do too much in one novel. We have where these women are finding each other attractive way too early. Now, again, they were making eyes at each other. And I know in my last update, I said I was surprised that the romance didn't kick in quicker, but it kicked in at the wrong time. We had so much exposition at the beginning showing us the depth of these characters and who these women are and what they represent in a thematic sense, and therefore also the way that they would be thinking and how they would be processing the events that have led them to being part of the gauntlet. The fact that then they immediately start finding each other hot, the fact that they immediately, one thing happens that makes them then have to become reluctant allies, and all of those things, I think it's an odd choice how quickly they find each other attractive as opposed to just reluctant allies. I get that they were kind of making eyes at each other and they kind of saw each other's humanity through the positions that they had been put in, but I would have preferred, I think, for them to have been like reluctant allies, like this is the only way we can survive, but I hate you, before we start to peel back those layers a little bit more. So I think that felt rushed. So while I was surprised the romance didn't kick in sooner, I wanted it to kick in sooner so it could develop slower. Sadly, just isn't necessarily my preference. Thematically, still very rich and still really enjoying it. I'm really interested about the world building. I'm very curious to see also about the way that the consequences of this might or might not play out, and how many consequences we're going to be tackling here. So there are a lot of things that I'm really excited about continuing, and I'm liking the prose style. I just wish that the romance worked better for me than it does. I don't buy it for a second. I don't believe in it for a second. Which, granted, we've still got a long way to go with that as well. It's not as though like they're now madly in love with each other. We could have done with much slower development than we have. I think that this is a standalone as far as I am aware. Standalone romances actually normally work better for me. I much prefer a standalone romance. My favourite types of romances are the series of romances where we follow a different couple in each of the books. I know romantasy fans normally prefer the one love story spanning over multiple books. There are very few books that works for me personally. We'll see if this is to its benefit that it's a standalone or not, and how quickly I learn to buy into it. But obviously normally I'm reading Regency romances where the stakes are this guy's a bit of a douche, not this is the person that was intending on murdering me. Slightly different stakes to overcome. That is it for this update. So I will check back in once I have either made some progress in the books or once I have something to say about my moving arrangements and plans and organising, whichever comes first. Alright vlog, I am now checking in because I have read, I'm now at 78% of the way into Vile Lady Villains and 73% of the way into Fable for the End of the World. So I thought I would check in. We'll start with Vile Lady Villains. I am loving this book. Really amped up now. The romance has finally really started to do its thing. We've got some Sapphic sexy times. Woof! Yes, also we have a little bit more Shakespeare-ness. Also just the way that the whole Marlowe thing played out actually worked well for me. I'm okay with it. Shakespeare being a character the way I'm loving so much about this. All the references that we're still getting, all the allusions to history versus mythology versus stories. I am loving everything about this book. This is just the most me a book can be. I am having a wonderful time. I can see how this book is going to drive so many people insane. This is going to be a Marmite book, I swear, because people are either going to be like, what the fuck is the point of this book? Or people are going to be like, this was everything. And I can't imagine there's going to be a huge amount in between. I am adoring the characterizations of these characters. The audiobook is also so good because I normally don't care about audiobooks, and at the minute I get frustrated when I don't find the time to listen. There was a day, I think it was Sunday, I didn't have a chance to listen to my audiobook and I was a bit like, excuse me? I'm at the point where I wanted waterproof headphones so that I could at least listen when I'm in the shower, so I'm not wasting time. Time where I'm not listening to something should be time I am audiobooking, which is just not me. If you know me, you know I'm not an audiobook girly. I'm really not. But I've been listening to a minimum of an hour a day for like a couple of days now. So I'm nearly done with this. I'm very excited to continue. I'm just so excited to see, like I said, all of the depictions of the characters and the way that we've really actually started to get a bit of a plot now. We've actually started to get a little bit of excitement going on. And I guess the way that your hope ebbs and flows throughout the story as well. I'm excited. Now, we have Fable for the End of the World. I am liking this. I have made myself like this. This is a book where I didn't buy into the romance, and now I'm at a point where it's like, well, I either buy into it or I don't. And I just chose to buy into it. I just chose to think, yeah, okay, let's just roll with it. Let's see how this goes. Let's just roll with it. And I am enjoying it more. So it was an active choice. The author, I don't think, did enough to make me buy into the romance. I just, on my own, decided that I either needed to DNF or just close my eyes, count to 3 and be like, okay, now we are in on the romance. And I did that, and I don't think that the book deserves for me to suddenly be like, yeah, okay, I'll buy into it. But I would like to enjoy this book. I would like to enjoy a Sapphic dystopian anti-capitalist story. Why wouldn't I? It's anti-governmental, anti-capitalist. It's discussing our society, and I would like to get on board with that, and I wouldn't like insta love to be the reason that I don't. So it's not going to necessarily get like perfect rating for me, but we'll see. Now that I have chosen to buy into this romance, we'll see how it ends. I'm very curious to see where this is going to take me. I hope that it makes it worth my while, because yes, there was a crossroads moment there where I just kept getting annoyed at the romance. So I basically kind of needed to sit myself down and say, okay, this is not good. So you either need to stop getting annoyed at the romance and just be like, yeah, okay, that's cute, or you need to DNF. I think that all of the messages and the background stuff make it worth my while. So an odd experience I'm having at the minute. I am at 73% of the way in. I think I already said that. And I'm very curious to see where this ending is going to take us and how it's going to make me feel. So we'll see where I go from there. But yeah, that's it for this update. I'll let you know, I guess, now when I'm done. I think when I'm finished with these, I'll do one final check-in and we'll see how I have rated them and what I think of the endings. Good morning, vlog. I am done with both books, so I thought I would check in and wrap up this vlog. First off, I did finish A Fable for the End of the World. Now, this is a standalone? What? What do you mean you're going to end it like that? What? Like, I really appreciate that ending, but also how dare? You know, if you've read it, you know what I mean. Like, how dare? I had to go double check that it wasn't like one of those, it was originally a standalone and then it got extended into a duology because page count or whatever. It's listed as a standalone on Goodreads. In the blurb, it says standalone. Excuse me? Not a cliffhanger ending for anyone who that's a big turn off, but I am melting. This has come out at 3.5. Again, I had problems with it. The pacing was funky. The romance was badly paced, in my opinion. But thematically, and the conversations that it was having, and the world building, here for it. Very much here for it. Plot was also a bit meandering, I suppose, in that typical dystopian way of you've just got people kind of floundering around, people who are not equipped to take down the system, being suddenly pulled into said system in whatever shape or form that is. I really appreciated this book. I wanted to like it more. I wanted to care more about the characters and the romance side of it, but I appreciate what the book was doing conversation-wise. Do I think it's doing anything hugely new conversation-wise? No, not really. But apparently we need to keep having the same conversations because there are people who don't believe the earth is round. Like, at this point, I can't even criticize something for trying to have conversations that we should have been able to leave in the 90s because these conversations still keep needing to happen. There are people who are still out there like, Hunger Games is so unbelievable. And it's like, if you say so. I appreciate the book. Not my favorite Ava read. Not my least favorite Ava read. That's a Lady Macbeth still. Talking of Lady Macbeth, I also finished Vile Lady Villains. Listen, is this book going to be for everyone? No. Not in the slightest. Chris from A Fictional Escapist has given it 3.5 stars, which is perfectly fair. I didn't think anyone would be a middle of the range kind of person with this book. I thought he'd rate it lower. I thought it would be more like a 2.5. To be fair, he might be being generous. I feel like he really didn't have as good a time of it as I did. But the thing is that I'm a history nerd, I'm a mythology nerd, and I'm a literature nerd. Like, if you know me, you start any of those conversations and I will be at it for hours. You will be praying you never mentioned any of those things. This book is those things. This book is written for me. I refuse to believe that this author, whom I have never met, didn't specifically write this book for me. It's just scraped a 5 stars, 1 point less on core part, and it would have gotten a 4. That feels a bit harsh because it feels like it should be like solidly 5 stars. But my rational brain is a bit like, okay, pacing is unusual. We get Sapphic yearning, Sapphic sexy times. We get enemies to lovers. We get distrust and I will cut your throat out to let me feast on you kind of vibes. The way that the magic works in here, the way that the divinity works in here, the kind of end game of it all of that was really well done. The side characters that we have in here are very limited. So we have the Fates, but they don't appear a huge amount. And then we have one of the Shakespeare character, one other Greek mythology character that was quite prevalent. We get mentions of a few other characters from both, and then we get one historical figure and one historical literary figure. You know, it's not a huge ensemble cast, but I think everyone was handled really, really well. And as I said, we also get an Egyptian goddess in there as well. And for the most part, I think that it has a really interesting analogy of the way we perceive stories and the written word and the value that we place on those stories, and how then people can be very specific about how how they believe those stories are supposed to be told and interpreted, etc., and the constraints that we put on literature, especially like classics and historical literature, and the reverence that we give it as though they're not just also stories. And I think that was really, really well done. So the conversations in here were fantastic. The representation in here was fantastic. I have no complaints about this book. Absolutely none. Really glad I read it. This is one that I kind of wish I had physically. Not gonna lie. It's one that I would probably reread and annotate. As Chris said, some fantastic one-liners in here as well. And the way that the humor is interwoven, I also kind of like agree with. I also really loved having conversations. Me and Eleanor have had quite a big like back and forth about the way that women are depicted in here and the way that it's women taking back their own name and their own authority over their lives and taking it away from men, both within their own narratives as well as the men who have written them. So I really appreciated all of those things and I really did enjoy this book and I would highly recommend. But that is it. That is it for this vlog. I know I didn't do a huge amount of moving content in the end. Basically, a lot of my moving is going from room to room. So like I take everything from a room, put it in a box and then take it elsewhere and repackage things. So it's a lot of moving around. And while I would love to be able to be one of those really cool booktubers that like can, you know, every 5 seconds be okay setting up again and, you know, putting the camera in a new position, I just don't have the time. Like I have 4 kids. So while they're at school, I need to get stuff done. I have the 5 hours that they are at school to get stuff done. It's not something I can just do while they're around a lot of the time because they require my attention. So I don't have the time to then expend that extra few minutes that it might take to keep setting up my camera, because then that ends up becoming like 10 minutes, you know? So I got a little bit of moving footage in there. I got a little bit of packing footage in there. It is what it is. We are a pretty decent way through the packing now. I think we've kind of got at least an idea of dates as to when our stuff's going to get taken. So things moving in the right direction, at least. Sorry, I'm not more interesting with the B-roll stuff. I'm hoping I'll get better at that at some point, but no guarantees. But for now, that is it for this vlog. So let me know if you've read either of these and your thoughts on them, or if based on my liking of these you have other recommendations for me. I'd always love to know. That is all from me for today, so thank you ever so much for watching and I'll hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye.